Where's that?
My wife used to work in television. Nothing worse than being on TV
With
and
gum.
chewing gum.
No. Listen, my mother taught us.
Good evening, and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of March 9th, 2020. We are using Facebook live streaming on Facebook Live, but there is no live interaction, but you may leave comments. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councilors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? And we will be voting by electronic ballot on all matters except administrative. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? CAO Rice, could you please take the roll call?
Your worship, all councillors are present, and with the exception of Councillor Maxwell sends her regrets.
Excellent. Thank you very much. You have before you the proposed agenda. We have a couple of deletions due to some paperwork not being completed. So item 6A is deleted from the agenda, and item 10A, sale of properties, is also deleted from the agenda. If I could have a motion to accept the proposed agenda, please. Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. You have before you the advisory committee meeting minutes from January 13th. There was a request to revise the minutes with verbatim presentation by Councillor Maxwell. If I could have a motion to accept those minutes as amended. Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. You also have before you the Council Advisory Committee from February. The minutes of February 10th, 2020 Council Advisory Committee meeting have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes? If there are no errors, the minutes are approved. If yes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red and the approved minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file. All right, all good, no errors? Certainly.
If I might just add, I know it's going to be added, but just for the record, I was present at both of those meetings.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda are our presentations. To our presenters, thank you for appearing this evening to make your presentation. You will be provided with 10 minutes, and I have the clock right here, to make your presentation, followed by questions from council. Your report is a public record and will be considered by council for recommendation to the next council meeting. There is no decision this evening. You may wish to remain until we conduct new business, at which time we may be making a recommendation to council for further consideration. No final decisions will be made tonight on your request. So our first presentation is with the Friends of the Kentville Ravine, and it will be Ken Harrison making the presentation. And I won't start timing till you start talking.
Okay, good. I'll make it. It's no problem. Okay. Down here. Okay. Essentially, the Kentville Ravine, or what was called the Kentville Ravine, is sort of spread into concerning the name, basically making it the Elderkin Brook Ravine, because that's the geographical feature. And I know when we did this round in about 2014, 2015, several of the people in outside areas, why are you calling this Kentville? And we said, we didn't really care what you called it. It's just a significant area. And it's something that, and it exists, as you can see on the slide, right on the boundary between Kentville and New Minas. And under the arrangement that I understand has been made, that there's now essentially a management agreement in place for all of that area. And you can see the old original trail, which is in the dashed line, and it comes down to what's called the second bridge. And that bridge was removed by Ag Canada a number of years ago. So that really limits the access to the lower part of that ravine, because that's the gentle way in to the ravine. It's on the level, and it has the benefit of connecting directly to Main Street. Once it's open, there is the remnants of an old road that existed there from about 1920 to probably well into the 1940s, and I found references to it being a horse and buggy trail up the bottom of the ravine, and then there's too much activity, so they eventually closed it down to a walking trail. And so the foundation is still there. After the second bridge was removed, the beavers set up housekeeping on the floodplain, and so that has become rather wet and muddy, as you'll notice in the little annotation. And it's really the wooded area between the ravine and the New Minas connector, which is the gray line shown at the right, is really an excellent buffer for the ravine, and a really necessary buffer to the ravine, because that really gives it the privacy. And it's a lot of people thought of the ravine as being some sort of an ecological preserve, and unfortunately it doesn't have any status in that regard. It was certainly talked about in the early 70s, but never went any further. So I've put a blue arrow here on a sketch map, and the property lines from some of those properties just off the New Minas connector, in one case comes within probably 25 to 30 meters of the ravine itself. And you can see right diagonally through the blue arrow, there is a property line that runs right through there. And that's anything to the left of that is basically federal land, which you folks are now managing, and everything to the right is private land under the New Brunswick, or under the New Minas situation. And one of the important factors is that the Kentville Ravine area is really only about 8% of the Elderkin Brook watershed. That watershed extends all the way up to Keenan Mountain. So if you went all the way back past exit 12 and all the way up the mountain, that's draining into that. And one of the events that I recall very clearly was in 1971, and I mentioned it in that little handout. We had a very substantial rainfall of something like 7.36 inches of rain, and that's inches, not millimeters, in a period of about 36 hours. And this was just shortly after 101 had been opened, and the water flow came under followed the path underneath the exit 12 and proceeded to take most of the Prospect Road and wash it directly into the ravine. And there was no way that you could get from Kentville to New Minas because the bottom end at Main Street / Commercial Street was completely overtopped. And as a result, if you wanted to go to New Minas, you basically had to go to Colebrook, take the 101, and go all the way around. So, and all of those things are beyond our boundaries. So the challenge is, it really doesn't take much rain to do a lot of damage. And this was just after a 60 millimeter rainfall. And this was the Saturday morning on the left and the Sunday afternoon the next day. And you could see the roots have been torn up and the water flow is fairly significant. So this is essentially what we have now, which is a very special area. It's very accessible, and it's something that really should be in the planning process. And I think, Peter, you can take over now, Peter Hicklington, and he can talk a little bit about the coordinated approach that we suggest.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Well, you started out by asking if there were requests. We really don't have any requests specifically, except that this is more for information. Clearly, we have some challenges, and Ken has outlined some of those with respect to the ravine. But I think it's important to point out that we have a very, very willing and able volunteer workforce to help with continuing protection and enhancement of the ravine. There was just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. How much pride that the residents of not only Kentville but the entire area take in the ravine and the way that it's used. And I do want to give a shout out to one group, the Flying Squirrels, which is a group that was born just a few years ago, but it's had tremendous impact, and they use the ravine extensively for both adult and most particularly children's education. There were 250 kids and participants who went through the ravine last year, and they get a tremendous amount out of it. I think what I wanted to emphasize more than anything, and it's been something of a dream of mine for a long time, is that the linkage of the various trails and the tremendous assets that we have. The Greenway and the Harvest Moon Trail are extraordinary. Miners Marsh and everything that Kentville has done with Miners Marsh is extraordinary. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to link the ravine directly with those trails? I think it's perfectly feasible. One of the challenges we have, as Ken has outlined, is the lower floodplain there. Elderkin Brook has spread out across that area. Certainly the opportunity perhaps exists now that there is a leasing arrangement with the federal government to create some infrastructure there that would reopen the access to that trail from the lower parking lot, which I think would be very, very welcomed by everyone. The other thing that clearly is happening here is development, and the new housing development, Miners Landing, just across the road from where that entranceway would be. Clearly, there are going to be many people in there who would get a tremendous amount out of the recreational opportunities that both the Ravine Trail and Harvest Moon Trail provide. So this idea of concerted action, perhaps working with the Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition. I'm a member of that, and we maintain some other trails up in Black Rock, but tremendous resource there to help out with trail construction and maintenance. I think if we all work together, we can do a wonderful job with this and meet some of the challenges that are clearly going to be presented to us in the next few years with Elderkin Brook. So I believe we have talked about when the weather improves, a tour for those who would like to go through there. We've done it previously, and we'd love to do it again. Access right now, of course, is from the Research Center grounds, the picnic area there. But we would love to do that and show you just exactly what we have along that ravine trail. I know many of you are familiar with it, but that perhaps is a first step. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Perfect timing as well, I might add. 9 minutes, 33 seconds. Yeah, pretty good, eh? No pressure at all. All right, we'll take some questions, if you don't mind, from members of council. That was an excellent report. Thank you. Councillor Ballin, please.
Thank you, Worship. I grew up across the street from the park, up on Dow Road where the Shell station is. So my brother and I and friends, like in the 70s when we were 14, 15, without aging myself too much, but we would mountain bike through there and still do snowshoe. I mean, it's got a tremendous selection of hardwoods, mushrooms, but the trails, we used to catch trout in the brooks at the second bridge, third bridge, and the upper falls. I mean, I recommend anybody to get in there when the weather's great to look at the falls near the top. It's just phenomenal. So we do need to protect it, but we have to also watch climate change issues and our sudden weather systems. It'd be nice if we could find a collective way to replace that second bridge to get access. So that's in someone's budget somewhere, but I mean, because if we're going to expose it to other folks, they're going to want access. And I'm not sure if the research station is going to appreciate a lot of vehicles going up to the picnic park, which is a great way to access it. But certainly at some point we need to look at the lower bridge if that could be replaced.
My only comment would be that that lower area is critical for anybody who's has limited mobility.
Yeah.
And that I believe it was about the time that I moved out of here. I was away from Kentville for 33 years with intervals back, but at the time, the heart specialists at the hospital were suggesting that that lower walk was a really good therapeutic walk to take. And of course, once the second bridge is gone, then you have to deal with the Mountain Goat Trail down the side from
And then get back up.
yeah, the backup is the challenge.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Just to either of the gentlemen that presented, I'm just wondering, since the storm ruined the bottom part there, is there an inventory of the infrastructure needed or the damage done, or is there anybody that has any sort of idea of what it would take to get that lower end of the trail back up and operational?
Well, I think the inundation in the lower part is probably more due to beaver dam and some of the natural meandering of the brook than any catastrophic event. But that's not to say that things aren't going to get worse. Kate indicated, it's a considerable drainage area there from the South Mountain. So in terms of infrastructure, I guess what we've dreamed about is a boardwalk of some description. Once you come over that first little ride, from there on, it really does need some sort of boardwalk to take us up to where that bridge is, and then a new bridge put in. One thing I would say is we faced a similar challenge with a bridge that was rotting out on the trails that I'm involved with in Blackrock, and the Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition that I mentioned were extremely helpful. There's a company that works with the Trailblazers, and they, along with volunteer help, put in a new bridge for us. So it need not be a huge cost, and there are lots of people willing to assist.
Thank you.
Those are the two key.
Thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Ken and Peter, thanks for the presentation. It was really great. It's nice to bring our attention to the ravine again. I know council with staff are talking, when we talk about strategic planning in the town here, we talk about, working with Director Bedingfield and the ravine and different things that we can do there. And now that we have the arrangement with the feds, that'll make things even easier. So yeah, it's a great piece of property for sure in Kentville. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think the important thing is to realize that farm was established about 1910. And
Wow.
there was infrastructure in that ravine at one point, actually fairly close to that second bridge area,
Okay.
which was the old original swimming pool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I know I was talking to Louis Camo,
Okay.
and he had a photograph of the old pool, and my
Wow.
older siblings can tell you that it was the coldest place on earth.
I was going to say Councillor Ballin. You must remember that. Nobody got that.
All right. Councillor Andrew.
Rather than just echo Councillor Savage, I just want to say thank you. And even though you made it clear there wasn't a specific ask, it sounds like there's, and I know this has come up a number of times for us. It's a passion project for many. So thank you for your leadership in that, and I look forward to being part of forging some partnerships to make some of those exciting things happen, to make it more accessible.
Councillor Pulsfer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. We always like to have new information of what's going on and groups that are helping to promote the natural environment within our town. And definitely a tour of the ravine would be very much a nice thing to be able to do whenever the weather cooperates and you decide to put one on. Be sure and let us know. with reference to the lower portion of the ravine, I think the accessibility aspect that you mentioned is something. Accessibility is really becoming an important portion of our thoughts and services to our community and to everyone, that make everything available for everyone if we can possibly do that. So I think that's something to consider as we move forward. And thank you very much. Look forward to a guided tour.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much for that. So next up, we have the Kentville Multicultural Festival with the Kate, Nancy, and B show. No pressure, ladies.
Now, you did say it's not going to start until we start talking.
That's
We have a
right.
little
That's
video.
right. I don't. Yeah.
Careful, you're already talking.
Don't talk.
No, it all has to be on the go here. So we'll go with the video first. And then I'll start your clock.
Start the clock.
You want to just leave that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, wow. Dude. Thank you very much for inviting us at the last moment. We're a fill-in for Dave Reed, who wasn't able to be with us. So Kate and I were more than willing to come and represent a festival such as this because we believe very strongly in it and have since its conception. Kate and I have been working on this. I'm going to be talking because I'm so used to my
She said I
back.
could talk first, but
Kate and I have been working on the festival. This is our 4th year, along with a very dedicated group of people in the area. We have some on from the town council have also been on our committee as well. And we believe so strongly in what we are doing that we want it to grow and be better and to be more diverse and bring in more people. We are the largest multicultural festival outside of Halifax. And up to 2 years ago, before they started it, we were the only multicultural festival. So we're very proud of that fact, and we do want to keep it going. And so we did send council our documents and our report from last year, which is some of what we have up there. So, Kate, if you want to.
well, and if you're not excited by watching that video, then we've done not a great job of informing you on exactly what the festival looks like. It's an amazing day. It's here in Kentville, even though it is. We want to promote diversity in Kings County and throughout the province. The fact is, the festival does happen here in our town, in our center square. So we have been under the umbrella of the the Kentville business community for the past 5 years. That organization remodeled, that's a good way to put it, but have a new model. So under that model, they are not going to be an umbrella organization for us anymore. So we're now looking for new revenue streams, obviously. Last year, $8,000, $8,800 was actually given to us by that organization, which we are looking to fill that void now that they've gone. They are still supporting the festival, but under this new model, it'll look a little different. They are giving us a grant, and they are offering support in the way of a coordinator. So if you look at the budget that we've prepared, you would see that Last year we paid $3,000 for a coordinator. This year it has a zero figure because we are doing that internally, but we're also being offered some help from the Kemptville business community itself in that regard. So let's take team.
One of the things that we have down here, and you'll see up there, is our mission statement. It's a family-friendly annual event that celebrates the region's cultural diversity and promotes social inclusion. And we try to make that our focus, but we also want to bring in all the other shareholders too to that. We have the town of Kemptville, of course, and we have the musicians, artists, dancers, performers, crafters, artisans, food vendors, community organizations, cultural ambassadors, business owners, funders, and supporters, which you notice at the end of our presentation, our local businesses, Diversity Kings County, Department of Communities, Culture and Heritage, community groups, art organizations, and we believe in working together to bring it to a festival such as this. So everyone, as I said, is a stakeholder in what we do. And because of that, it has a broader audience and it reaches out. Last year, I was very pleased to find out that we had people coming from the South Shore. They had heard about it through our social media contacts and wanted to make it a day of it and came to Kemptville for the day. And we're very pleased as a result of that. We did a survey at the end of the event, not the next few weeks or so, and this is what we received back from them. 69% came to the festival for the stage performers. Food vendors was 62%. The marketplace vendors was 43%. 72% indicated that they visited a business in the town of Kemptville during the time at the festival. 94% indicated that they would attend the Kemptville Multicultural Festival again. So we feel those are very representative of the group that we had, and that gives us encouragement and positivity to go forward into another year. We may not have said that at the end of that day, but we are now as we start organizing it again. And one of my main roles, as Craig Gerard knows, that I pray to the weather gods. And somebody up there really likes us. Oh, really likes us.
Knock on wood.
Because our weather has been very good, except for a little bit of rain last year, but that was okay. That was okay. We could handle it.
We had, did you mention that we doubled the numbers last year?
Yes, we had 2,000 attend last year.
So it's just every year it's growing and growing. And last year it actually doubled in size. So we had 2,000 people coming into Center Square in Kemptville on a Saturday afternoon to enjoy the diversity of Kemptville and its surrounding areas. And to that end, I would like to introduce Bissell, who would like to share some of her ideas about the festival and
a little about her life.
Yes.
All right, Bea, I have to get you to go close to the mic, please. The people in Facebook land can't hear you.
So let me start off with a good evening to every one of you. And so my name is B. B-E-E. And so is my last name. So I grew up in Singapore and I have families in Singapore and Malaysia. So it's just me and my husband. Yeah. I've been here for a number of years, almost a decade. So first few years in the city of Toronto, right in the heart of the city of Toronto. And then was an employment that brought us into the valley. At that point in Toronto, we have no clue, no idea what is this place. Okay, so as far as for the Multicultural Festival, so this did you guys know that it was initiated by an immigrant? I would like to, instead of using the word immigrants, refugees, I think it would be nice to call us new Canadians. So it was initiated by her. That was in 2015. So at that point, I think I was back in my home country. Anyway, so 2016, Frances, I don't know whether you remember her, Frances Shogun. So she invited me to help out, and then ever since then, I've been coming back year after year as a volunteer. And this year, 2020, is the number sixth year. So I'm truly grateful for the committee members to date. We make ourselves a great cohesive team. We have Kate, Nancy, Dave is not here, And then we have someone who is in the advisory role, Lindsay Young. And because of their, the earnest support is given to me, cheering me on, and that's why I'm standing here, first time ever. So you can tell that I'm kind of nervous inside me. Okay. So next part, you will ask, so why this multicultural festival? So why do I give off my energy and time, right? And as a volunteer, year after year, there must be a reason. So the point is that instead of using the word multicultural festival, which is pretty long for me, so can I just ask of you to allow me to use MCF just for this presentation? So what MCF means to an international person like me? So international person, obviously we have a few groups. So immigrants, refugees, who are here to, settle, and then to make a new life, to make Canada our new home. And we have also international students, and the students are here, to study at Acadia Universities and also the Nova Scotia Community College, Kingstad campus, right in the town of Kentville. And not forgetting that there are migrant workers also. So migrant workers, not just the Jamaicans, Mexicans that's working the farms, but also the other workers. And these are the ones that, they are here working for the healthcare sector, the healthcare, the daycare for the children, and also like the food and beverage and call center. Yeah, we have one call center here. And also the food processing plants, like the Valley Pine, the Eden Valley Chicken Plant, and so on. So just picture in your mind, right? So these are, the various groups are actually the representative of the international community. So what's so important about this MCF? It actually means two things. The two main things to us as international. So the first thing is the cultural diversity, and the second thing is the inclusiveness. It means a lot to us. As you know, that this festival is an avenue where the diverse cultures are showcased through, food, and then music, dance, art and costumes, and then artisans, crafts and products, and also the goods, for the day-to-day use. And don't be surprised, when you get, make your way there, you find goods like the items that's from India, from Mexico, from around the world. And so what does it mean to us? Is it to someone like me, it is a sense of being accepted. It is a sense of being appreciated, of being recognized. It's the affirmation and the sense of belonging. And not forgetting that, it is also good for the local people, because they get to explore, they get to discover, they get to experience, through all the, the various options that's available through the festivals. Isn't it a nice way to, to have a taste of the richness of the diversity that we have right here in the valley? So, like this, the different ones, the individuals, who are, who come here from, from abroad, and, I can see on her face, when she say, that was her first year, and she come to know about this multicultural festival, so she make her way there, and right away, she click, and they say that this is a place, this is where I belong, this is where I want to build my life. And she, obviously she's a mother, of 3 children, and so this is a family that they have yet to get their permanent residence. So don't be surprised. There are many of these families who are here working very hard and working towards, getting themselves a permanent residency. But it's a process. It's quite a process for them to get to that point. So looking at this festival, right? Yeah, it's a day event. So is it good enough just to repeat it year after year, for this one day event? Well, it's nice to have fun, right? To have some good fun in the public square. These are things that I've been, I've been thinking, anyway, so this is the one part here. Oh, hurry up. Oh. It's almost time. Oh, sorry.
We're here to
Just finish
support
your
you.
thought. Finish
Okay.
your thought.
So this is the part here. It's a project, and here we are to capture stories of the immigrants. And how do we do that? So to hire a videographer, right? And then we have a questionnaire, and then we go to identify the participants, and then go on a home visit, and then to interview them, and then have it recorded, right? And then with this, so we have it the video that's edited, and this video will serve as a promotional media for the Multicultural Festival,
Which
So
is
that-
in Kenpo.
Excellent.
yeah. So anyway, so that's a short-term benefits. So the long-term benefits, obviously, we can look at retaining, attracting many more new faces into the valley.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not even going to tell you how much time that was, but it was wonderful. Thank you so much. So if don't run away too bravely, because we probably have some questions here from council. Any questions? All right, you got off pretty scot-free. No questions. You must have did a good job. Oh, there we go. Councillor
Thank you,
Savage,
Worship.
please.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So do you have a specific, I know that you're not under the auspice of KBC now, like they're supplying you with a grant and things like that. Are you asking any?
Yes, we have submitted for grants to organizations.
Okay.
And this is just a presentation to give you all the background so you have a better understanding.
Okay.
All of the information that we shared with you today is part of the package that we sent forward.
Yes.
The other thing that's important I think to know is that we now have we're in association now with the Temple Farmers Market because we needed to have an association in order to do our grants, to providing a
Right.
come on board.
Okay.
And so we now have that association.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. We really enjoyed that spirited presentation, and it's always nice to listen to all your enthusiastic comments, especially, well, all three of you. And it was nice to meet you, Big. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, ladies. Our next presentation is with the King's Transit budget. And Glenn, if you would take the podium, I think we've got a PowerPoint for you, maybe? Yeah? No?
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Glenn Bannon. I'm General Manager of the King's Transit Authority, and I'm here this evening to present to you the proposed operating and capital budgets for fiscal years 2020 and 21, as recommended by the Board of Directors for approval on the 26th of February. A few facts of interest before I get into the numbers. We provide just over 36,000 hours of public transit service annually. As of January 31st of this particular year, ridership for the service has increased by 4% over fiscal year 2019-2020. Year-to-date ridership in the core has increased by 2.4%. On average, that's about 788 passenger trips per day in the core, which is up from 758 last year. As of January 31st as well, Year-to-date revenue for the service has increased by 10.3% over last year, and year-to-date revenue for the Corps has been increased by 8%. We basically contribute $1.2 million in salaries and wages spent in the local economy. Valley businesses provide goods and services necessary to support the fleet, building and operation, and King's Transit supports Valley businesses by getting workers to their place of employment and customers to their services. We've had a pretty busy year this year on the service and network and road side, if you will. We've completed a couple of service changes, including service change through the town of Berwick and also some rerouting in the vicinity of County Fair Mall in order to take advantage of the new road system there. We updated our route and numbering system, route designators and numbering system. We've commenced some route reviews for routes 1, 2, and 6, which we should be sort of presenting to the public fairly shortly. Conducted seniors engagement through the the Age-Friendly Communities Grant Program. Conducted customer engagement and survey work via the Valley Public Transit Riders. Conducted extensive work towards an Acadia U-Pass with the Acadia University. Formed a partnership with the Center of Geographic Sciences towards the identification of microtransit applications for the Annapolis Valley, and we also commenced work on a regional public transportation strategy, which should be completed within a year or so. Internally, we audited and updated a couple of our processes. As you're probably aware, we completed a very extensive accounting engagement to get our books into shape. And in addition to that, we merged our inventory platforms. We had 2 inventory platforms in operation. We merged them together for efficiencies and formalized some of the processes around them. And in addition to that, we updated our pre-trip inspection administration for the buses. On the fleet side, we went to tender for new 35-foot transit buses to replace the vicinity bus units. That work was awarded to Eldorado National for 3 Easy Rider 2 buses, which should be delivered in January of 2021. In addition, we accepted a donation of 4 old 2005 40-foot buses from HRM. We're transitioning those into the fleet in order to replace some of our higher mileage units. The first bus, which is Unit 62, commenced service on the 24th of February, and we're working on the second bus right now as we speak. In addition to that, we also commenced work on a formal asset management plan, which should help us to better manage our assets for greater efficiencies as far as planning corrective maintenance goes. The operating budget for 2020-21, there are some influences there which should be understood. First of all, we continued our comprehensive review of revenues and expenses, and the allocations reflect fair and equitable distribution amongst the core units and our 2 service partners, Annapolis County and Digby County. Related to that, individual proportions of total ridership have changed slightly over the last fiscal year. The core is now at 65%, Annapolis County at 25.5%, and Digby at 9.5%. And as a result of that, the core share of indirect expenses is slightly less, and the Digby share is slightly more. We've had expressed to us, of course, a desire to end the operating deficits at year end, and due to that, we've built additional risk allowance into the budget numbers. On the revenue side, I'm projecting a 1% increase in fare revenues based on last year's results. There wasn't, on the expense side, there are some impacts due to the year-end accounting engagement that I previously discussed. One of them was to hire slightly higher caliber accounting coordinator, and there's, as a result, some improved compensation package for her. There was a recommendation that we receive some assistance or oversight, if you will, from the municipality of Kings, and that was built into the budget. And as you know, we presented a recommendation for an operating reserve, which was rejected, and as a result of that, we're not projecting any interest in our bank accounts, and there will be increased bank charges as a result. A couple of impacts of our planned bus purchase include travel for the build period inspections at the end of the year. so that we can make sure that we're getting what we paid for. And in addition to that, there will be a requirement to write off the obsolete vicinity inventory, and that's carried by the core owners alone. As you know, in 2018, we did a compensation review for our bus operators, and there was a recommendation that we step up their pay. And as a result of that, we've got a slightly increased wage increase over the cost of living allowance. For the operating budget, a few key points. The total operating budget for the Corps is $1,860,000. Total revenues are projected to increase by 6.1%. That includes the fare increase of 1%, an increase of the management fees that we're charging to our two service partners, Annapolis and Digby counties. The core municipal contributions are projected to increase by 9.29%. The Kentville share of those municipal contributions is $194,000, which is roughly $16,500 increase over last year. Total expenditures are projected to increase by 6.1%. The main cost drivers there are the risk allowance, the additional accounting and finance charges, the operating impacts due to the bus purchase, operator wages, and external support to our strategic plan initiative. On the capital side, as always, it's based on a couple of assumptions, one of them being the continuity of annual provincial, municipal, and federal grant programs. We're really looking at only a couple of proposed initiatives this year. One of them is the bus purchase, which has already been approved, as you know, the supplementary capital budget from last year, in the order of $630,000. We have to replace the furnace oil tank at the new Minas complex. The projected expense there is in the order of $15,000 to $20,000. And the cost to outfit or refurbish units 63 and 64, which are two of the old buses that we've received from HRM, are in the order of $20,000 a piece. As always, there are pressures and risks. The pressures for us are an aging bus fleet, aging building infrastructure, a small administrative and technical staff, and the risks are always around the fuel budget, the fare revenue, as I spoke previously, risks around capital grants. There are some unknowns about what's going to cost as far as external support goes for our strategic plan, but I do believe that those costs will be covered through our annual grant from the province under the Nova Scotia Transit Research Initiative Program, as well as the additional support that we're going to receive from the municipality of Kings on the finance side. And there are some risks as well around our advertising revenue. Because there's some churn in our bus fleet, it's hard for us to kind of advertise wraps on the buses when we don't always know where they're going to be. That's the end of my formal presentation. Are there any questions?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. Nice presentation. Good to see you back. You said ridership was up 2.4% for the Corps. Two questions. What is that in revenue dollars? And what triggered that increase? Was it a fare increase or different markets or?
So it's kind of hard to say what actually triggers the ridership increase. At the end of the day, I like to think that our service is a little bit more reliable. And when I say reliable, we're always impacted by traffic, weather, et cetera, but the reliability of the service has greatly improved due to some of the technology improvements that we have. Now that we have this app, which gives people a better sense of where their bus is, they get a better sense of whether or not the bus is going to be late and or early or on time. And as a result of that, I think that's kind of boosted our ridership. We've done a little bit of advertising as well, a little bit of marketing to kind of push the service. So that probably contributes to the numbers. On the revenue side, we did implement a fare increase last year on January 1st. And I think that's contributed to our numbers as far as our fare increase goes.
Just one final question, Your Worship, if I may. Any more consideration towards going deeper into Hants County, where you were before? Beyond the town of Windsor?
Yes. So at the moment, I referred to this in my presentation. We've partnered with the Center for Geographic Sciences for this microtransit application study. And there were 6 areas, 6 potential growth centers. And when I talk about growth centers, they aren't necessarily the sort of growth centers that you might get information from your staff on. These are growth centers that are sort of transit centric, okay? And 3 of those are under closer study at the moment, one of them being in the area of Centerville, Canning, Wolfville, Kentville, one of them being in the vicinity of West Hants, and the other one being down towards Montagan.
Okay, thank you.
I have in fact been in communication with the CAO of West Hants, and of course things are starting to settle down there a little bit now that the election's over and everything else, and I hope to continue that conversation. I know that there's been some interest in West Hants, both with regards to a fixed route public transit system and also some ride shares, so I think there's some momentum that we can build on there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Glenn, I just had a couple of questions. You talk about the revenue year to date, January 31st is increased by 10.3. So just trying to get a sense that increase in revenue percentage-wise, how that relates to the expenses, like overall.
Sure.
Net in like so you're talking about the revenues have increased year over year by 10.3, but I'm wondering has that increased proportionately with the expenses, or are you showing a higher bottom line or about the same or less, or?
So those numbers I gave in terms of the revenue increases that we've enjoyed this year are compared to last fiscal year.
Yeah, year over year.
They aren't necessarily compared to budget, but they're compared to last fiscal year. So even though we've had better success this year in terms of collecting revenue relative to last fiscal year, compared to the budget, so far this year we're at 4.9% increase above budget for the service as a whole. So as a result of that, even though our results are better from last year, they're just a little bit better as compared to budget, and because I think I'm addressing your question because I've built some risk into the budget, and yeah, I'm being a little bit conservative with the revenue increase number.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking that, because when you say 1.2 million in salaries and wages spent in the local economy, that's why I was just trying to get a sense of, you know, what things look like at the bottom line level.
Right.
Year over year.
So I don't think I'm following your question. I mean, our expenses for next year are projected to increase by 6.1%.
No, yeah, I realize that. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Just it doesn't make sense. Okay, so you're saying that the year-to-date revenue has increased,
right?
Oh, year over year by 10.3%. So year over year, that's what your increase in the revenue has been, right?
Just compared to last fiscal year.
Yes, year over year. Yes. So then I'm just saying, how has that equated into the expenses? Like, are your expenses up as well year over year?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Probably by a higher margin.
By a higher margin. Yeah. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I have another question. Sorry if I didn't ask that the right way. The formal asset management plan that you talk about, commence work on a formal asset management plan. Can you expand a little bit on that?
So we do have an asset management system in place right now, but it's not really formalized. We don't have a policy. We don't necessarily have a life cycle management plan for our buses. So as a result, past practice has been sort of to take them in and then follow the manufacturer's suggested planned maintenance program for them. But our asset management plan as it stands right now isn't really tied into our budget and our budget forecasts on the capital side. And as a result of that, I don't think we've been purchasing buses in a way that sort of smooths the the maintenance of the fleet in a way that doesn't represent a shock, if you will.
Right.
I mean, right now we've got essentially six units that need to be replaced. Okay, and that shouldn't be. I mean, if we had kind of phased our purchases in a better way, I don't think the shock would be as great, and we'd be able to leverage better the grant programs that we're eligible for.
Yeah. Okay. Overall, you're feeling better about things than you were last year.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks. Okay.
So Glenn, I don't know if you saw the news today or not, but gas is down, or oil is down to $35 US a barrel. So I think that may help out on the budget a little. But I did have one question. When you said 2005 buses and retiring high mileage units, so what would be the mileage on our buses compared to these HRM buses?
So, for example, Bus 56 and Bus 55, 2 units that we just retired, they had over 2 million kilometers on them. And the buses that I got from HRM have, in the order of 650,000 kilometers.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the other question I have is, have you looked into hooking in with the Valley Wren and the Manufacturers Task Force? So the Valley Wren here has brought together all of the manufacturers in our area. And one of the things they've identified is that they don't have enough people to work jobs. And we've got several of these manufacturers who are looking at new contracts and looking at new employees. And one of the things they're talking about is, how do we get people to work in the Kentville Business Park, or how do we get people to work in Waterville? So I just kind of throw that as a balloon up there, and maybe there's some way that you can hook in with the Valley Wren, and I can send you all those details, because I think that what you're doing could really help this manufacturers task force in the long run as they're looking for new employees and getting them to and from work.
Yes.
So I will send you that detail, but I just wanted to put a balloon up there. All right, are there any other questions for Glenn? Perfect. Thank you so much. And you are on our business towards the end of our agenda for this budget number that you've sent us.
Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Excellent, thank you. All right, need to get myself organized here. Okay, so we're moving on to our department reports and recommendations. The directors will present their reports and will be accepted into record with one motion at the end of reporting. Specific recommendations, Director Kroll, will be moved individually as necessary, and councillors may present questions and comments to the directors at the end of each presentation. And Director Kroll, you're up first, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Snow, and good evening to you, Council. I just wanted to tell you in advance that I'm at the very tail end of a virus, and I've got post-viral cough syndrome, so hopefully I don't get in the middle of a coughing jag in the middle of this 7-report meeting that I'm going to have with you tonight. So bear with me if I do. I've got water. And somebody can resuscitate me if they need to. You're up, Dave.
When you talk about a viral
my first report.
That's quite the introduction.
Finance usually isn't this exciting. I'm bringing you first the report from the Finance Department for the month ended February 29th, and in the essence of time tonight, I'm not going to read you my report, but I will highlight a few things in the report. On the revenue side of the ledger for the town of operating, we're slightly above the average. The average would be 91.7% if everything was averaged evenly over the year. We're at 93.9% recorded at the end of February. There's some revenue streams left to come in. We have the fourth quarter coming in for the secondment that has yet to arrive. We also have the return on investment for the perpetual fund that has to that will arrive at the end of March. As well, we have the $25,000 grant from the additional officer program to arrive from the province of Nova Scotia. That's under conditional transfers. So those are the three major sources of revenue that we're looking at that still have to arrive. Of course, there's bits and pieces that will be arriving as well, but those are the big ticket items. On the expenditure side of the ledger, we're just about on target. The benchmark would be 91.7%, and we're at 91.8% on the expenditure side. So basically, it's going to be business as usual for the month of March. It'll be remuneration and benefits related to the staff, and all debt charges are paid for. I've mentioned that before in many other reports that I've given you. So basically, we're on target on the expenditure side of the ledger. Under taxes, we are at February 29th. We've collected 100.5% of the 2019 levy, which sounds a little unusual, but people are prepaying their 2020-21 taxes. That's why we're basically over our percentage point. So property tax outstanding at February 2020 is not outstanding. Actually, we have more revenue than what we had billed out. We have $46,664 more than what we billed out. And last year we were owed $163,378. So basically equates to 100.5% collected, which sounds very odd, but as I mentioned, it's related to prepayments of next year's taxation. Perpetual fund, schedules E and F. We're looking at the cost and market at the top of page 5. You can read that at your leisure. We have interest paid into the fund of around $151,000 and dividends paid into the fund $186,000, and capital gains are $163,000. And fees are comparable to last year, $29,986. You can see the market value is significantly over the cost at the end of February. Under the capital investment plan, which is Schedules G, there are a number of pages in there relate to the 2019-20 Town of Kentville Capital Program. The program continues on its path until the end of March, but at the date of writing, we have $1.7 million recorded, which is about 60.8% of the budget that we had set in 2019. If you have any questions on any particulars, you can ask the directors who are here, or I can help if it's something that they can't answer. And we have Schedule H, which is the amounts due to and from the County of Kings. That's there for your information. And basically, that is my report in a nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the director on this report? There being no questions, let's move on to your projection report.
Now see if I can find it. And hopefully you've had a chance to give it a bit of a read. Okay. Where is it, Jennifer?
Close that out.
What?
Close over there.
Close that right out. There we go. Gotcha. Oops, wrong. Here we go. Okay. Giggle, giggle, giggle. It's the drugs. Neocitrin.
Okay, I was wondering. I was going to ask you what. Any special flavor?
Lemon.
Okay, thank you.
The projection report is a good one this month. We're looking at the surplus increase by $45,300 from the last report. And I'm not going to go into the great details there. I'll give you the highlights of what the changes are on the revenue side of the ledger. We're looking at the payments in lieu from the province of Nova Scotia came in finally. We finally got that all settled away with the Justice Center, and we got $5,100 more than what we had budgeted for the provincial grant in lieu. I've discounted revenue from own source by $37,800. There are bits and pieces of increases there related to rentals, but the big kicker is that I've taken out the return on investment supplementary income of $70,000. We would not be tapping into that because we're going to be posting a surplus at this time, so I removed that $70,000 revenue stream. On the expenditure side of the ledger, under general administration, the accrual for sick leave has been reduced by $26,800. There have been an awful lot of changes in the town of Kentville staff this year, and that has factored into some savings from the budget figure that we had in place. So general administration is down $26,800. Police protection is also down $18,000, and this relates to the constable's wages for the most part, with some offsetting expenditure increases in some of the other sectors. But the major kicker is the constable's wages, and this is related to some workers' compensation remuneration that has come in for officers who are on workers' comp. Under law enforcement, I've reduced that section by $35,000, and this relates to additional savings related to collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is ongoing. You'll see that back in the budget in 2021, but we are not going to spend the budget allotment this fiscal year, so there's some savings there. As well, under protection EMO other, I've discounted the animal control $11,000. We've got some savings there. That budget will not be consumed this year, so there are some savings there as well. So all told, adding up the increase, the decrease in revenue streams and the decreases in the expenditure streams, we're looking at an increased surplus of $45,300 from last month, which gives us a projected surplus of somewhere around $70,000 at the end of March. So fingers crossed there aren't any huge snowstorms or anything to that effect at the end of between now and the end of March, and we may have more good news to report at the end of March.
Excellent.
That's my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Deb, I'm going to ask this just because I don't know what kind of impact it has next year. So the hydrant area rates over budget 81.6 for revenue, due to the change from the flat rate to calculation provided by URB, and then that's offset with the fire protection. So I understand that, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean for next year? Does that mean
the hydrant area rate's going to increase?
So more revenues, obviously,
And
but
the expenditure equals the revenue.
It's
Whatever
always
okay. Whatever it's an area rate. We call it the hydrant area rate.
Okay.
Whatever we charge for it, we have to charge the citizen for the
Right.
cost that they have to pay for the hydrant area.
Okay.
It gets paid over to the water utility, so it's really a nil effect to the town of Kentville. It's just part of our total taxation rates.
I had hoped that it would mean more revenue.
No,
It doesn't. Okay.
For the water commission, it does.
For the water commission, it does. Yeah.
Which is good news.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. I understand.
And it just so happens that the fire department is holding the rate meeting tonight.
Oh, they are?
Yes, unfortunately. So here we are. Yeah, it is too bad. All right, moving on to your next report, withdrawal of capital reserve, draw number 2, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is a report related to the 1920 capital budget, and it is the second draw that I'm asking for to finance the capital acquisitions that have been completed in the past month. We have already drawn, as you can recall, the $299,000 that was approved at last month's council meeting. I'm looking for an additional $12,439.38 to finance the projects that you can see in the column that's called draw number 2. You may see draw number 3 coming in April, which we still have some projects that still aren't fully completed, but at this point in time, I try to draw down and pay for what I can each month. So we're looking at $12,439.38 required to be withdrawn from the town of Kentville capital reserve general allocation, which at this point in time contains $901,976. So my recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolution be approved for withdrawal of $12,439.38 from the town of Kentville capital reserve general allocation. This transfer will partially fund several capital acquisitions as denoted above during the year 1920, and I recommend that it go to the next docket of Town Council for ratification.
Thank you very much. And the seconder? Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that Council Advisory approve the withdrawal of $12,439.38 from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation to the March 30th, 2020 Council meeting. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the withdrawal of $12,439.38 from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation to the March 30th, 2020 Council meeting. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. And you're moving on to withdrawal equipment reserve, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is withdrawal number 2 related to the Town of Kentville Capital Equipment Reserve. And much like my previous report, this provides for partial funding of capital equipment acquisitions from the Town of Kentville Capital Equipment Reserve Fund. There were various projects that were budgeted under transportation. This year, the budget from reserve was $59,000. We've already drawn $31,945.53. That was approved at last month's council meeting. And the request for draw number 2 is $27,054.47. And you can see the amount that the town of Tenville Capital Reserve contains, $136,973, and after this withdrawal will contain $109,919. So my recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolution be approved for withdrawal of $27,054.47 from the town of Kentville Capital Equipment Reserve to partially fund 2019-20 transportation equipment acquisitions. And I ask that it be moved to the next docket of Town Council for ratification.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the Council Advisory approve the withdrawal of recommend the approval of the withdrawal of $27,054.47 from the Town of Kentville Capital Equipment Reserve to partially fund the 2019-2020 transportation equipment acquisitions to the March 30th, 2020 council meeting. Is there any discussion? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend the approval of the withdrawal of $27,054.47 from the Town of Kentville Capital Equipment Reserve to partially fund 2019-2020 transportation equipment acquisitions to the March 30th, 2020 council meeting. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to debenture funding.
Yes, thank you, Worship. This is a report related to debenture funding for the spring 2020 issue. The Chief Executive Officer of Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation has informed the town that debenture funds will be issued this spring. We require debenture funding for the following. You can see the resolutions there for the two projects that I'm asking for. We have 1920-01 for various purposes. The approved limit that we had for related to capital acquisition, $1,081,500. The requested funding for debenture in the spring issue is $529,700. Under TBR 1617-03 Robinson Building, the TBR limit approved was $172, and I'm asking for debenture funding of $96,400. The total is $626,100. The Municipal Government Act provides the legislative authority for council to pass resolutions that set the parameters for a debenture issue. Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corp requires that in order to streamline the debenture issue process, council must approve a pre-approval resolution and forward it to Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation. And the required approval resolutions are attached along with a copy of the duly approved temporary borrowing resolutions. A letter of commitment for the debenture issue will be sent to Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corp. along with a copy of the temporary borrowing resolutions. The pre-approval resolutions will be forwarded to the minister once they are ratified. The deadline for submissions is Friday, April 17th, 2019. That's why they're appearing on the docket this evening, and they'll hopefully go to council at the end of March. My recommendation is I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolutions for pre-approval of debenture issuance be approved and forwarded to the March 2020 Council meeting for ratification. And then after ratification, they will be forwarded to Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation to complete our debenture issue for spring 2020. Resolutions, as I noted before, TBR 19/20-01 for various purposes, $529,700. TBR 1617-03 for the Robinson Building, $96,400. In total, $626,100. And you will follow the pre-approval resolutions for each of those. Follow my report, and beyond that, you will find the duly authorized temporary borrowing resolutions that were approved not only by our town council but also by the Minister for the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory approve the pre-approval of debenture issuance of $626,100 for the following: TBR 1920-01, various purposes, $529,700 and TBR 1617-03 for the Robinson Building, $96,400 to the March 30th, 2020 council meeting. After ratification, it be signed and forwarded to the Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation to complete our debenture issue for the spring of 2020. Is there any discussion? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the pre-approval of the debenture issuance of $626,100 for the following TBR 1920-01, various $529,700 and TBR 1617-03 Robinson Building at $96,400 to the March 30th, 2020 council meeting. After ratification, it be signed and forwarded to the Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation to complete our debenture issue for spring of 2020. Voting is now open. And voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to withdrawal operating reserve.
Yes, thank you, Worship. This is a request to mitigate any Town of Kentville operating deficit position as at March 31st, 2020. Finances at the very beginning of the year-end process, quantifying accruals and deferrals as they arrive. However, the final position of the Town of Kentville operating fund will not be assured until early to mid-May of 2020. If the Town of Kentville is in a deficit position after the completion of the year-end process, this deficit figure must be the first line item in the 2020-2021 Town of Kentville operating budget, as municipalities are not permitted to carry deficit positions. An operating deficit position will also affect the town's financial condition index for the year 2019-2020. The town can eliminate a potential year-end deficit by the passage of a blanket resolution which permits the transfer of funds from the Town of Kentville's operating reserve to offset any shortfall. The town's operating reserve contains $496,657 as at February 29, 2020. So my recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee to approve a blanket resolution for a possible withdrawal from the Town of Kentville operating reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2020, after all year-end transactions are quantified. These funds would only be transacted if the town was facing a current operating deficit at the end of the year.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory approve recommendation to the March 30th, 2020 council meeting of a blanket resolution for a possible withdrawal from the Town of Kentville operating reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2020. After all year-end transactions are quantified, these funds will be transacted only if the town was facing a current operating deficit end of year. Is there any discussion? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the recommendation to the March 30th, 2020 council meeting of the blanket resolution for a possible withdrawal from the Town of Kentville operating reserve in the amount of any current operating deficit should one occur at March 31st, 2020. After all year-end transactions are quantified, these funds will only be transacted if the town was facing a current operating deficit year-end. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, one more time.
One more. Thank you, Worship. I'm bringing a report related to the temporary borrowing resolution for 2021-01. This is for next year. It's a refinancing of the Kentville Police Station. In January 2020, the town received notice from Nova Scotia Municipal Finance Corporation that a debenture number 25B-1, issued on November 22nd, 2005, has a balloon payment due in fiscal 2021. The debenture segment relates to the Kentville Police Service Building constructed in 2004-2005. The balloon payment is $300,000 and is eligible for refinancing for an additional 5 years. I attach a temporary borrowing resolution, file number 20/21-01, refinance Town of Kentville Police Station, which was approved by which was provided by Nova Scotia Department of Municipal Affairs. This resolution requires council authorization before it is forwarded in triplicate to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for ministerial consent. This is part of the required process to access the fall 2020 debenture call. I recommend then to Council Advisory Committee that it authorize the temporary borrowing resolution noted below and forward it to Town Council for ratification. After this happens, the document will be sent to the Minister for Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. The issue is TBR 20/21-01, refinance Town of Kentville Police Station, and the amount is $300,000. Following that, you'll see the temporary borrowing resolution as provided by the Department of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the Council Advisory recommend the authorization of a temporary borrowing resolution, TBR 2021-01, to refinance the Town of Kentville Police Station in the amount of $300,000 to the council meeting on the 30th of March 2020. After ratification, it be signed and forwarded to the Minister for the Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. Discussion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Deb, is the 300,000, is that all that's on?
Yes.
The,
Yep.
Anything further? The question is on adoption of the motion to recommend the authorization of a temporary borrowing resolution, TBR 2021-01, to refinance the Town of Kentville Police Station in the amount of $300,000 to the council meeting on the 30th of March 2020. After ratification, it will be signed and forwarded to the Minister for the Department of Municipal Affairs for provincial authorization. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you very
Director
much.
Kroll. All right, moving on to Director Gentleman, Park Planning and Development.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. At the bequest of our CAO, we've been asked to just pare down a lot of our reports, just touch on the highlights since this has been available for the last several days. So for building permits, we've issued 4 for building valuation of $652,100. That includes 2 brand new houses, which is nice to see. We had hoped to have the curling club file come this evening, but we're waiting for a revised plan of subdivision or a revised plan of survey. So we hope to have that coming to an end sometime next month, hopefully. There still remains a great deal of interest in the business park. There's several parcels that we're looking at selling, and there's also been interest over the last couple of weeks with some land around River Street. And just day-to-day operations with meetings and drop-ins and calls. If there's any specific questions with regards to what's in the report, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Thank you very much. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hi, Bev. Hi. Just a couple things. The former KCA land, so there you just make mention there that there's no updates, but probably that it's anticipated that the owner will request an extension.
Yes, that will be coming the end of the month.
Any idea how long of an extension they'll request, or do you know?
They've indicated potentially they would start construction in September.
Oh,
at least from
okay.
the information that so far that they've provided.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Perfect. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, just 2 things. I mentioned this to Mayor Snow the other day too. I took a drive up through the business park the other day, Kentville Business Park, and it's just really neat to see all the entities that are up there now and some of the new builds that are happening and things like that. So it's
good news.
It's great news. And then when we talk about on River Street, and there's strong interest there in that property as well. So you hear a lot of buzz around Kentville about what's happening here and how land is selling, and this is where people want to be. So I encourage people to come in and speak to folks like you or Mayor Snow or CAO and just you know,
We're
if they're
getting the
looking for
calls.
something. Yeah.
Getting calls.
Yep, that's
It's
great.
time to ring them in.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. That's great. That's really great news. Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Pulsper.
Thank you. You referenced the River Street property.
Mhm.
What property is that on River Street?
Well, there's a couple of properties there. I don't want to be really specific right
Oh,
now, but
okay.
I just wanted to put the information out there that there is interest, so people are
Okay.
calling, and again, that's great news.
Okay, thanks.
Nothing further.
So I'm going to stay up here and do Lindsay's as well.
Perfect. Okay.
Again, it'll be short and sweet. But to begin with, an appraiser has been retained to do the appraisal of the business park lands per council's request. We have a summer student, Jacob Fenchek, who's been working with us for a 6-week period. At the end of Jacob's time, we hope to have a full report, including recommendations for improvements in the business park as informed by a survey of the stakeholders. Mike Cameron of Kentville, I don't know if anybody knows who he is. He has been hired to be the coordinator for the mentorship program. I don't know when the date of his, March 23rd. He will be starting. Susan Carey has been hired again as the manager of visitor services, and the opening day for the visitor center will be May 15th. And they will hold a small open house for that as well. For this year's Apple Blossom Festival, apparently there was a large food truck venue that was being hosted in New Minas. They have requested to come to Kentville. So they will be brought into Kentville and I think placed in the Center Square area for the Apple Blossom Festival. And KCA Schools has reached out for assistance with Lindsay to help them with a Pride Walk for students in June. So you will hear more on that later on.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions for the director? Of note, you may want to put in your calendar, save the date on May 15th for the opening day of the VIC, because we will be dedicating a bench up there, and then there's some other activities planned as well. So if you've got room in your calendar, now's a good time to save it for this event. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Speaking of saving the dates, I see Lindsay has a section in here on the public garden, just the budget review, but it's not there. I don't have a question about that. It's just more around when we think the unveiling will be, or sort of the open date. Any idea?
Not exactly, but I'll be this year, so sooner the better.
It'll be next year?
No, this year.
Oh, this year. Yeah. Okay.
As soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
No.
there's
That's,
only one major element that needs to be completed.
Yeah.
So once that's done.
yeah, that's exciting too.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to Parks and Recreation, Director Bedingfield. So were we all supposed to change clothes before we came to the meeting? Just asking.
I spent the morning in the woods at Keji looking at bugs. I didn't feel it was appropriate to wear those same clothes here, but a lot of infestations happening. Just a little insight into my life. Good evening, Council. I too have a few highlights just to focus on. I did want to just bring note, and I know they've all left, but the folks that were here from the there is a group called the Friends of the Kentville Ravine. That's who is here presenting to you, and they themselves, with us, create the Kentville Ravine Advisory Group. So I do a few things really well, and one of them is making sure I'm surrounded by people much smarter than me, and that's that group. So I just want to highlight that, and they're very passionate, not just about the use of the park and the space, but also its upkeep and from a conservation lens. Hence me being in Keji talking about infested bugs and stuff like that. They're pulling me, kicking and screaming, but I'm going there. It's great. So just really quickly, this is my report, right? A few things under programs and operations. We've had 2 successful sessions of the Memory Cafe, and I encourage any of you, if you're around, to come and check this out at Tan Coffee. If you remember, this is the opportunity for folks who are struggling with memory loss or dementia and their caretakers to come in a public setting and enjoy some coffee and some local entertainment. It's been quite successful. Again, we're doing that in partnership with the town of Wolfville. So every other week we host the Memory Cafe, and this is actually part of a global initiative to support folks with memory loss. And the link again is there if you'd like some more information. I wanted to bring your attention that I mentioned this in my last report, that we received a grant to get some items for a sensory kit, and we've now purchased those items, so they are available for the community to use. And this will be coming out in a press release in the coming days. I'm looking at Jennifer to confirm that. And that this is for anyone who has sensory related issues, for example, autism. We've tested out a lot of the equipment. It's everything from fidgeters to weighted blankets to weighted vests to noise canceling headphones. And all of these items will be available in a multitude of sizes for the community to use at events or even just to participate in leisure at home, because we're trying to ensure that all people have the ability to make choices for quality of life. Public engagement. I did want to bring light. We have two, much like the planning department, we have two, because we like to always be one better than everybody. We have two students that are doing some work in our community. These two fine young gentlemen have been doing some wonderful work. We've been targeting the community up around School Street and that whole subdivision there. They started off with some learning conversations and went door to door and brought the portable play box. People came out of their houses and talked to them for a couple hours around the town of Kentville, their feelings of it, how connected they were or weren't with their neighborhood. And this was enough to inform a survey that they had then created and hung on everybody's door, and they picked up today. And so now they're just kind of pulling it together so that we'll have the information. And I'll certainly bring that here to council, but they're doing just a really great job and have reiterated how important it is for us to actually get out and do the work and walk door to door and talk to the citizens that live in our community. So we're really proud to have them. And it's a really great partnership that we have with Acadia. And then the last piece I wanted to highlight was under council priorities. There's a few things here to highlight on. Excuse me. One is the Kentville Town Accessibility Committee. Excuse me. I don't have COVID. I'm fine. It's because I'm here in death. Bugs. The committee's been working on a statement of commitment to bring to council. You will see this hopefully in the coming council meetings. This is part of the legislative requirements that we bring you a statement that then council can hopefully get behind. Moving forward, the committee has decided to open up a portion of their meetings to the public. This is something we're really proud of, so that every month or whatever consistency the meetings are held at, there is a segment where we bring people in who live in our community who have lived experience about what it's like trying to access certain things, whether it's a physical disability or mental or cognitive or whatever that looks like, so that we can learn from the first person. And we wanted to make sure that the community had access to that information as part of our public education and awareness campaign. Lots of really great work coming out of that committee. Councillor Andrew and Councillor Pulsifer sit on that committee, and they can speak to it as well, but it's a great group of people. Under Regional Recreation Agreement, on March 2nd, and thanks to those who were able to attend, we held a joint council meeting that was held at the Kings County building. We had some really great discussion and a presenter that was brought in from UNB, Dr. Jackie Anescu, who talked about the gaps within our current recreation delivery model and how they themselves can tend to divide our community, our already ostracized community members, and how moving together as kind of one delivery system is a really good opportunity for us to take a look at how we can be more efficient and more effective with our delivery system. The next piece is the active transportation plan. So we've actually struck an internal working group within Town Hall, and we'll be bringing some things to you in the coming council session, CAC, around our recommendations on ways to move forward on our next 5-year recommendations based on the report that was done. And then the last piece here that's a council priority is the Kentville Green Plan. So as staff, we've pulled together kind of a draft outline of a plan for the town. We're working really hard on this and working with some other experts in the community, again, back to surrounding yourself by people who are much smarter. So we're continually reviewing that. We certainly have some consultation and some process to bring that to the public. That's first and foremost, to talk about what that means to our community to be a green town. And then, of course, we'll be bringing some things and a report back to council for your viewing. And that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions for the director? Well, from her report, again, a couple of save the dates. So it may or may not be somebody's birthday on Saturday, May the 2nd, and brunch in the Kentville Recreation Center for our volunteers. And on Wednesday, March 25th, come out for a cup of tea with our leadership candidate. The other thing I wanted to mention is that meeting with Jackie Onescu. I have to say that I was sitting there wiggling in my chair, and I was so proud because I just want to say, Kentville is just rocking it. So everything that she was talking about bringing people in, it's all the words that we've had Rachel standing here, and sometimes she probably feels like she's beating them into our heads. But truly, we are listening to you, and when we go to this type of event, and we've got this expert in her field talking about these things, and we see them coming to life here in Kentville, like our play boxes, like Flying Squirrel, like Super Happy Family Fun. You know, all these events are really what brings a community together. So thank you so much for trying to herd cats and make us understand that recreation is about so much more, and it truly is about our community. So thank you. All right, moving on. Chief's report.
As submitted.
As submitted. Deputy Mayor, did you want to add anything to that from Police Commission? Perfect, thank you. All right, moving on to Engineering and Public Works. Director Bell, please.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm going to jump right into projects under Public Works. Excluding last week, we have spent approximately 65%, that's a better number, of our 2019-2020 budget for snow and ice removal. So with only a few weeks left, I think we're definitely on track or better. No more snow. The tender that was approved at last council for 2 pickup trucks is now out and is set to close next Thursday, March the 19th, here in council chambers. Just want to give you an update on the KCA geothermal wells that we spoke about at last CAC. I brought that to everyone's attention, our concerns with their request to bypass the return wells and dump the precious groundwater into the storm sewer for a period of time. So CAO Rice and myself, we met with Environment to express our concerns regarding their updated plan, or contingency plan for the geothermal wells, which includes a request to connect to our storm sewer on Gary Pearl Drive and potentially bypass these return wells for up to 8 months. The meeting went well, and NSE, both their hydrogeologist and their inspector, were in agreement with us that this request was excessive, and 90 days was sufficient and should not be extended to 8 months. So we have replied to the AVRCE regarding the request to connect to our storm sewer, and suggest that the money would be better spent to recondition existing wells rather than connect to the storm sewer, or develop new ones. That work should be scheduled for the summer months when the heat is off and the students are away, making it a safer time to do it, and no need for a bypass. Our ultimate preference, of course, would be for this system to be switched to a much safer closed loop system. But I don't suspect that will happen, because that is a major undertaking to convert the existing open loop system. So I don't see that happening. They haven't replied to my email, but they do know our stance, and certainly, we feel that the work can and should be done in the summer months when, again, most students are away and the heating system's off. So if that's the case, there's no need to bypass at all, and they can update their wells. Moving on to the sanitary sewer utility, we had a couple meetings earlier this month. One was technical committee that I sit on, and then the regional sewer committee, and they've set their budget for the 2020-21 operating year for $1,512,600, of which Kentville sits at about 50%, which is our proportion, which is $757,100. This is about a 4% or $30,000 increase from the last year's operating budget. This is mostly due, they had some overruns last year. Power was one of the bigger issues, so they've, based on those expenses from last year, they've budgeted for a similar power consumption for this coming year, and some of their wages and staff time was up. So that's sort of in part what we're seeing, the 4% increase from the previous year. And this month really saw no major operational or maintenance issues with our sanitary sewer system here in town. The rest is pretty standard. Frequent phone calls and drop-ins and letter correspondence, meetings. Of course, we have senior staff every Tuesday morning, and the regional sewer committee meeting a couple times this past month. That's my report. Open to questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I was asked today by a resident, is there a list of streets that are on the docket for this year for fixing up, whether it be?
Well, we've got a paving, a priority list of paving. We've got, we're of course looking at hoping to do, we're always been hoping to do, I think the last number of years, Burke subdivision. I don't see how that can be phased. That subdivision really needs to be done all at once. It's gonna, if you don't do it in one construction season, it's gonna be an absolute mess. And we don't, to do that, I've done an estimate looking at, $850 or so before tax, and it's $1 million project in that ballpark. But streetwise, yeah, we've got a list of sort of the streets that need to be paved. We want to make sure we're doing the paving on streets that we've got confidence on the water and sewer and things. So we're not paving it this summer and digging it up in the next couple. But yeah, we have a pretty good list that we'll be bringing to council
That'll
soon.
be budget time.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. David, so I wasn't at the regional sewer meeting because I was away, and I know that Councillor Andrew had recommended adoption of the budget. But just a question, and I reviewed some of the numbers when I got home. But so there's a 4% increase, which equates to about 30,000. Was there any discussion around? Because I know that none of that would mean we stayed within our ranges overall, like with BODs and total suspended salt things like. So we weren't over in any of those areas on a per year on an average basis per year.
On the average, no,
right?
there were some spikes, but you're correct.
There were some spikes, yeah, but there were some other partners or partner that were over.
Okay.
More. Oh my God, I can't even talk. I'm sorry. There were a particular partner that was over more than we were. More than like it was overall per year. I'm just wondering if that related to any sort of increases in their piece of the budget.
They saw a 7% increase overall.
They saw
right.
7. Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, I think that should have been in the summary.
Okay.
The only, I think 3 of the 4 partners received an increase from 4 to 7%, and 1 a slight decrease, and that's because I don't think it's any secret. New Minas has done a great job. We'll say policing their fast food industries and things like that, and they've cut their strengths way down. So that's why they're seeing some savings this coming year. They're sort of going around to the different businesses and ensuring grease traps are installed. We don't have that really in town as much as the fast food commercial street district in Minas.
Yeah, we only have a couple that really.
Yeah, we have some pubs, but they're
Right.
not the same as.
No, not at all. No. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. Nice report. I was in Aylesford last week, and some crews are doing pothole work. With our changing temperatures and fluctuations, sorry, I can't talk either. Potholes, it's the bubbly here. Pothole season is here. That being said, though, when's the asphalt plant open?
We're still looking at May, for,
Wow.
for hot mix asphalt.
Yeah.
We cold patch. We cold patched last weekend, this week, around. But to get hot mix, you're just prior to 2 weeks before apple blossom, typically middle of the month.
There's a good selection of
Maybe
potholes.
early month. Pardon?
There's a good selection of potholes everywhere in town. Like in
Oh,
front of
there
the,
are, yeah.
The Nissan dealer, Honda, McDonald Avenue. It's
So you saw TIR in Aylesford?
Yeah.
Transportation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were doing full patch too, I assume. Yeah.
So is that something that's available to us?
Oh yeah, we buy it by the pallet full from the city. But it's a temporary fix.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that it's.
But yeah, we've been doing.
It's on your radar.
We've been doing it for the last 2 weeks.
Oh, sorry.
longer,
I've seen no
longer.
evidence of it, but you've been doing it. Great. Okay.
All right. Thank you. So I just want to remind members of council, the NSFM Monday memo came out today, and there's actually a survey there that is asking for our opinion as towns with roads. So as you know, in town, we pay for 100% of our roads, where people in the county, it's a provincial matter. So it may be worth, I haven't looked at the survey yet, but it may be worth your while to get your opinion in on that survey. So thank you very much, Director.
Thank you.
And moving on to communication, recording secretary, are you reporting? Okay.
Switch you over. You got that, Rick?
I think, Kelly, if you want to put it up.
Yeah, just switch it over.
I'll switch it. Okay.
So the communications team has been really focused on summer planning. So they've been looking at job postings. As you heard, the visitor information center staff has been sorted out. They're sorting out the camp staff for recreation. So a lot of communications and promotions has been around those sorts of projects. The really popular posts on Facebook, which is an indication of things that people are noticing, are things that some of the things that Rachel talked about, the Memory Cafe events, the opening of the Healing Station. That's another, that's a health business that's opened in the old Cornwallis Inn building. The Community Puzzle. The Community Puzzle is set up at a table on the Recreation Department, and it has someone working on the puzzle every time you walk by. It's really lovely. So these advertisements that go out, they're hitting the right people. They're bringing people in who just want to work a little bit and have some company. It's really lovely. The Kentville Historical Society had a really great post that got a lot of hits. The retirement party for Russell, and definitely the job postings get a lot of attention on our website and also on our Facebook page. I think that's all I have to report.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Savage.
I don't have a question, just a comment. The puzzles are very difficult. They're very difficult.
Can I tell you a story about the first puzzle? The first puzzle
Absolutely.
was a custom puzzle, but it arrived with no picture on it. It was a completely white puzzle. It was a snowstorm. It was Kentville's snowstorm in Miners Marsh. So we did not put that one out.
Okay.
It can't be that hard.
There you go. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the CAO, please, with your report.
Okay, so I'm not going to, because I do apologize, it was late getting to all of you. I was away, and so you do have it. I don't have it here, so I will just quickly go through it again. you know, you have all of it there, just the highlights there. The Culkin building continues to see some interest, as was mentioned. The Mentoring Plus program, we did attend the federal funding announcement in New Glasgow on the 10th of February. It was a great turnout. The federal minister was there, and it was a fast trip. But myself, the mayor, and Lindsay Young headed down for that. We're still looking at the tightening up of the covenants around the sales agreements with the Kentville Business Park. We did spend a lot of time this month reviewing the code of conduct processes. I'd like to mention the Town of Kentville Flag Day festivities, which all of us attended, and thank Ashley and Lydia for organizing and running that event. It was a great event, and as you can see, ongoing with emails and that, and my list of meetings is there, and I'm not really sure how I did all of them because there was one less week in my schedule, but listen, we accomplished it, so I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the CAO? Councillor Bolland.
And I would just like to say kudos to Director Kroll for filling in for you while you were gone.
Yes,
So,
I'm
good job. Once again, Deborah.
Very much for bringing. Yes, very much, Deborah. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right. We have received all of our reports. If I could have a motion to adopt the staff reports as presented. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that staff reports be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Well, we have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to our correspondence. Our first matter of correspondence is the Annapolis Valley Regional Library Annual Report. And it's actually sitting out on the table if anybody wants to look at it other than this scanned copy. Councillor Pulsifer, did you have anything that you wanted to add as a member of that committee to the annual report?
No, not really. I guess the new funding agreement is next on our agenda. So,
yes, it is.
No, just that Kentville, of course, has always been one of the highest of the circulation libraries throughout the valley, usually always on top. They're very busy there, and things are going really well with that library this year. So,
excellent. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our next piece of correspondence. CAO, if I could get you to...
Yes, Your Worship. So I will, this is a letter from the Annapolis Valley Regional Library. Dear Mayor Snow, I am writing to you on behalf of the Annapolis Valley Regional Library Board. On February 25th, 2020, I received correspondence from Justin Houston, Deputy Minister, Communities, Culture and Heritage. Deputy Minister Houston shared the following information. The new library funding model will be implemented in the 2021 fiscal year with an increase of $2 million in annual investment from the province. The budget also includes an additional $500,000 for an annual application-based grant program available to libraries for innovative new projects. Although the one-year notice was provided to municipalities as per the Municipal Government Act, municipal funding will remain at current levels for the 2021 fiscal year. We will use this time to collect data from the municipalities to determine their total operating contribution to libraries. That said, municipalities can opt to start paying the increases beginning in the 2021. This is a local municipal decision that would be agreed upon by the municipality and the Regional Library Board. Included with this letter are the funding fact sheets for your individual library regions that outline the changes to provincial, municipal, and board funding with the new funding model. These documents were sent to municipalities prior to the municipal consultations in the winter of 2019. For more than a decade, Kentville's assessment has been frozen at $36,948. Under the proposed funding formula on April 1st of 2020, your assessment would have increased to $42,800. The Annapolis Valley Regional Library is asking the town of Campbell to implement the new funding formula on April 1st of 2020. Having the new funding formula enacted in its entirety on April 1st of 2020 will allow the Annapolis Valley Regional Library to pursue increased hours of operation in our branches and enhance services, collection, development, technology, and programming on a shorter timetable. Please let us know your intention as soon as possible so that we may accurately invoice you and properly prepare for the coming operational year. In closing, the Annapolis Valley Regional Library is excited about this renewed financial commitment from government and looks forward to working with our municipal partners to ensure the Annapolis Valley has sustainable and thriving library service for the future, and that our citizens have the best possible library service that we can provide. Should you have any questions, please contact me, Anne Marie Matthew, Chief Executive Officer. And there is a funding sheet attached, which is in all of your programs, and it should be
Excellent.
here.
Thank
There
you,
we go.
CAO. So this moves us very nicely right into new business, almost as if it was planned that way. And our first order of business is AVRL request for funding increase. So I'm going to look at Councillor Pulsford. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to this letter before we discuss this?
Well, it's my feeling that they have requested our contribution to begin in the coming year, which I would encourage that be reflected in our budget deliberations as we move forward for the next year. Considering that the payment to the